Alright, hello once again, Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and as part of the Rankin Technical College AWD, or Application and Website Development Program, and in particular the AWD 1111.NET Framework with Web Databases class, I've been going through a series, or creating a series of video presentations based on the textbook that will be used for the AWD 1111 class in the fall 2019 semester. As you can see on the screen, that book is Pro ASP.NET 5, Pro ASP.NET MVC 5, and APRES text by Mr. Adam Freeman. We're working our way through Chapter 17 out of 27. All right. The author says, now that you've seen how a custom redirection works, we can switch to the equivalent one provided by the MVC framework. All right. So return new redirect result. As the author says, we remove the conditional statement from the action method, which means that if you start the application, you go to derive product, produce output, we should be redirected to the basic index URL. So let's check. Waiting for this to load before I actually hit the enter key. And the author does mention underneath this that to make it even simpler, all right, well, you can see we're at basic index. So let's try slash derived slash produce output, hit enter. Okay, we are put there, but we didn't do a redirect. Looks correct to me. We are getting the error message here. Now, again, why is that? Well, it could be a lot of reasons. Could be I misspelled something. You know, literally, it could be just about anything. Basic controller. Okay. So that looked correct. Basic index. Don't know if it's because we don't have an index. I have no idea. All right. To make this simpler, again, we could have also, rather than doing this and returning a new custom, we could just have left this off and just said return redirect, and then all we need here is in parentheses like that. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this one back. All right. And I'm going to comment this first one out, and for the second one I'm going to change it to return redirect like that. And the reason that I'm doing that is to show you, to compare and contrast the two different ways that it can be done. All right. There is nothing in the action result system that is especially complex, but it helps you create simpler, cleaner, and more consistent code, which is easier to read and easier to unit test. As mentioned on the bottom of page 464, the MVC framework contains a number of built-in action result types. All right, and again, that's shown on the bottom of 464, leaving it there, and also on the top half of 465. All right, and underneath that chart here, it says the most common kind of response from an action method is to generate a view and send it to the browser. To demonstrate this, we'll add a controller called example to the project, and we'll put this code in it. When using the action result system, you specify the view you want the MVC controller to render using an instance of the view result class. The simplest way to do this is to call the controller's view method, passing the name of the view as an argument. In the listing, we call the view method with an argument of homepage, which specifies that we want the homepage.cshtml view to be used. And the author also mentions on the top of 466 here, note, the return type for the action method here is view result. The method would compile and work just as well if we had used the more general action result type. In fact, some MVC programmers will define every action method as action result, regardless. All right. So, the author says, when the MVC framework calls the execute result of the view result object, the search begins looking for a specified view. And you can see the path that it goes down here looking for it. And then they mentioned towards the bottom of the page, if you're not using areas, or if you are using areas but none of the files in the preceding list is found, it keeps looking for these. So you can see all of them up on the screen here. Once again, as soon as the MVC framework tests a location and finds a file, the search stops, and that's basically, it says that it's been found. All right, the author's not using areas in the example here. All right. Page 467 is one of our infamous unit tests, so I'm going to skip that. It goes also to the top of 468, so I'm going to jump down here on 468. And as the author says, the sequence of directories that the MVC framework searches for a view is another example of convention over configuration. You do not need to register your files with the framework. You just put them in one of the known locations, and the framework will find them for you. The author says I can take this convention a step further by omitting the name of the view that I want rendered and just changing it, as we had here, to just return view. So doing that. Okay, again, what I'm going to do is put that in here. And put them both in there so you can see both of them. The MVC framework assumes that I want to render a view that has the same name as the action method. All right, that's why this works. The MVC framework actually gets the name of the action method from the route data.values action value, which we talked about a little bit earlier. There's a number of overridden versions of the view method. They correspond to setting different properties of the view result that has been created. All right, let's jump ahead a little bit here. I'm up to page 469. And as the author says, specifying a view by its path. The naming convention is convenient and simple, but it does limit the views you can render. If you want to render a specific view, you can do so by providing an explicit path, as is shown right here, and bypass the search phase. So in this example, when you specify a view like this, you have to begin it with either a slash or the tilde slash to include the file name extension. The author mentions that if you find yourself using this feature, I suggest you take a moment and see what it is you're trying to achieve. In other words, you might be making more work for yourself than it's worth. You may want to go back and look at some refactoring, in other words. All right, passing data from the action method to a view. The MVC framework provides a number of different ways to pass data from an action method to a view, which will be described next. In this chapter, we discuss only enough view functionality to demonstrate the controller features of interest, as Chapter 20 is on views. Okay? So you can send an object, it says there, to a view by passing it as a parameter as shown. Notice we need the using system, and there it is. In this case, as is mentioned on page 470, we passed a date time object as the view model, and we can access the object in the view using the razor model keyword. To demonstrate this, they added a view here called index.cshtml in the views example folder. It's pretty simple, as you can see. I'm not even going to add it. It says this is an untyped, or also known as weakly type view. The view does not know anything about the view model page, and it treats it as an instance of object. To get the value of the day a week property, we need to cast it as an instance of date time. You see that right there. This works, but the author says produces messy views, so you're better off changing this to notice model date time. Then you can just say model day of week. All right. So as mentioned on the bottom of page 470, we specified the view model type using the razor model keyword. All right. And they show you what it's going to look like in here. The fact that you can use IntelliSense. 471 to the middle of 472 has one of our infamous unit tests. So I'm going to turn up to page 472, and in fact I'm going to stop right now with passing data with the view bag. I'm going to stop right here and pick it up again in the next lesson.